we've just got to be. If you are listening, welcome. But we are going to do a proper welcome. This live stream doesn't always play ball, but I think we are live now. So welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. It's a thrilling weekend of motorsport. Well, not quite thrilling in Monte Carlo, but Tiff's got a solution that could solve all the Formula One troubles certainly for the next few years. There's Formula 2 in Monaco as well. It was thrilling in Indianapolis for the 500, which was really bloody amazing, actually. Barcelona for Moto GP, back home, Snet and Donington. Loads of action going there. And of course, we've got to get back to USA because every weekend it seems to be NASCAR. But first, if you are watching and you're wondering why Tiff's wearing a football shirt, congratulations to Southampton. Beating Leeds, commiserations to Leeds. That's a horrible way to... All that way, they were there all the way through the season, and the Saints just pipped them yesterday at Wembley to go into the Premiership.
We are going up. We are going up. What a day at Wembley.
For those of you that can see, I think that Southampton, that one's not too bad, but your away kit, Hummel, it's gross. I think it's worse
than
the
black.
league,
The black, I know. They're so fussy about not wearing. I mean, a white shirt and a red and white striped shirt, they're pretty distinctive. It's like, well, you kind of any white because they're white. It's because Leeds finished ahead of us in the table, they got their favourite shirts and we had to wear the away strip. But yes, a season ticket holder, so a very happy Saints fan today.
Very good.
Meant I didn't sit at home falling asleep for the Monaco Grand Prix, but I have been looking at the qualifying, which was just amazing. And always amazing. That's when the race we all know is won or lost. But it's so close nowadays. The other cars and manufacturers have got a handle now. They've caught up Red Bull. We've got Ferraris. I mean, what is that? 0.3, the top four teams. Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull.
Mercedes weren't far off. They were there.
Well, they were in 0.3. No, 0.3 seconds. You know, then we had RB. Williams and Alpine in the top 10. So that's 7 manufacturers in the top 10. Haas and Aston not far behind. Aston Martin falling apart. And it's only really Sauber that are completely off the pace.
Williams.
So now that we've finally got...
Albon did okay, but Williams generally.
Yeah, Williams. Well, they got the top 10 for the first time, I think, they got into Q3. So, we finally got all the manufacturers have understood the new regulations are always so complicated. Adrian Newey gets a jump on everybody else. So this is the campaign we have to start now. We have to campaign to keep the current regulations. Forget this 2026 half electric, half petrol, active aero because they can't go down the straights on full throttle. Engines going full revs around hairpin bends while they're busy recharging the battery. It's just a science. And of course,
wouldn't it be amazing now? Things are so close. Now they're so close, and it will be. And it will be. Some people will get it right. Some people won't get it right. And it'll take a while for everyone to catch up again. So wouldn't it be amazing just to keep this running for a couple more years? For you, a few more years.
Well, it does, because it happens every time. Mercedes got the run of everybody, when they first went to the hybrid engines, because their hybrid engines are this clever MGHU, MGU. So we had the Lewis domination. Then Red Bull got the regulations right, the Red Bull domination. And it just happens every time. And always at the end of the regulations, they're all caught up a bit. And we're in for, anybody could win this weekend, which is what we want. But they're going to go for these new, and I think they're going to be so spread out. It's going to be such a complex thing to get this new thing working. There'll be massive gaps down the field, and someone will probably win every Grand Prix in 2026.
I hope not.
So, that's what, it was exciting, the qualifying, and it was so close. So who knows? But that's what we want. Let's petition to postpone, keep the regs we've got. We'll keep the regs T-shirts made. And let's continue. They're still not perfect, obviously. They're still far too heavy and far too big, but we can't have everything overnight. But we could just keep these cars for another year.
So typically at somewhere like Silverstone or Spa, a Formula One car would have a good few seconds, good 2 to 3 seconds on an Indycar. But I wonder around Monaco, where it's so twisty, so tight. I wonder if the Indy cars would, being that little bit lighter and smaller, whether they would be on parity.
nimble. And then close. I don't know what the gap would be. But apparently in the race, they were going around at F2 pace. They were all slowing everyone down, because nobody wanted a gap ahead of them big enough for allow for a car ahead to pit and get out still in front of them. So there was so much strategy going on. All the drivers were told to slow down. Leclerc was saying, I can't concentrate. And if I go slow into the hairpin bends, the tyres understeers, because the front tyre isn't getting loaded enough, so you lose a bit of temperature. And it was just, I mean, I've only caught up with all this news as I was having a lot more fun. Well, it was a nervous 90 minutes or 100 minutes in the end. But, you know, the top 10 finished as they started. And they all just drove around.
Oh,
I mean,
but Monaco, we know is quite processional anyway. But the fact that there was that almighty crash at the beginning on the first round, second corner, the almighty crash that Magnussen shouldn't really have been there. But Perez also wandered over a little bit. But whatever. Perez shouldn't even have been there. Perez, I mean, let's go back to qualifying, because Perez, he's doing this too often. He's not even getting past Q1, sorry. So he's got to do better. And I know Max, it really does show you how good Max is. Really,
I was about to say the same, because obviously the car's not the best anymore at the moment. But Max just rings everything out. Eventually hitting the barriers in qualifying, clipping the barriers, didn't he? But yeah, when the car isn't good, Perez, the gap just becomes huge, a second or something. But apparently they're still, even today, they're saying this won't affect him signing, because they still think, he's a happy number two. Doesn't upset Max too much.
Let me tell you, we all know that Max is number one. That's no secret there. But every single time when they finished at the same time. It wasn't like Max came in at a different time to Checo. Horner, Max, and what's the other guy's name? Helmut, Marco, whatever his name is. All three of them would debrief. Checo would go away with his engineer, whatever, but Max was Helmut and Christian every single time in the garage after qualifying, after each session, would be talking to Max, not Checo. So they want that second person. They want the person who's not going to dominate, perhaps. But I'd love to see Carlos or somebody with a bit of oomph about them in that seat. But anyway.
Or Yuki, but Yuki's not going to get promoted. I mean, Yuki's doing an amazing job in RB at the moment, blowing away poor old Ricardo. But that crash was a pretty frightening crash. And the worst thing was one of the wheels got loose. These tethers that have been getting stronger and stronger. I know. So the tethers that should be, to the chassis should be sort of almost unbreakable nowadays, as they've had this regulation for a long time. I don't know where the wheel went. Obviously nowhere harmful.
Thankfully, nowhere harmful. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit of a silly crash. Both of them should. I mean, K-Mag should have dropped back out, and Perez probably should have just moved left a bit. I think they saw him on the camera looking in his mirror, so he sort of knew he was there. So he could have easily given him another inch or two. I think K-Mag was more worried about staying ahead of Hulk than actually overtaking Perez. He had the momentum. So if he'd backed away from Perez, he would have had Hulk on his left. So, oh dear, what a crash. And then, of course,
straight away afterwards, Ocon as well with...
diving inside Gasly. What a move Ocon. That was.
I haven't seen the news. Yeah, but I haven't seen the news today. But apparently they've come out and said that that his future, there's something going to happen about his future. We're going to make a big announcement soon.
Ooh. So, the Alpine have.
Alpine, about Ocon. So interesting. I don't know whether that was a...
But then there was that huge streak of luck for Carlos Sainz. Of course, had a puncture from going side by side with Piastri. And apparently the reason why the grid order was set is because they had to go back to the timing beam as they left turn one. Because the regulation, when there's a red flag, you go back to all the timing loops. The last timing loop that everybody crossed before the red flag was thrown. And because Zhao backed off so much with a crash ahead of him, apparently when the red flag went out, before Zhao had got down, because I think the second beam was, before the Casino Square. Something like that. It was up the road.
Wow, okay.
But because Zhao hadn't crossed it, because he'd been held up by the crash and crawled through the wreckage, the first beam they all crossed before the red flag was shown was the one exiting turn one, where, of course, Sainz was in third place.
So is it different in club racing? Because in club racing, even if...
Yeah, usually goes back to the lap before. It goes back, I actually expected in the olden days that would have been a complete restart. If you have a red flag on lap one, you have a complete restart, and that the race hasn't even started yet. But no, they've got now a timing loop system, a bit like Indycars have. But don't say they've copied anything from Indycar, because that would be Formula One doesn't. They don't have a safety car. They have course cars. They don't ever have anything.
Well, we'll come on to IndyCar shortly, but it's quite interesting with IndyCar that it's not DNF or did not finish where you do in Formula One. So whoever crashes first finishes last, and then whoever crashes. So everybody gets a place in IndyCar.
You all get a place
in Formula One. If you're a DNF, you're a DNF.
Yeah, but I was so happy with Charles Leclerc, because he's done some qualifying laps there. It's his hometown. He's this is where he grew up as a little kid. So it's so good. He's finally, after so many disappointments, got the win. Of course, it was a red weekend. Let's face it: Manchester United red, Southampton red, Ferrari red. It was the town was painted red this weekend.
You've nicked my text message I sent you with those words, haven't you?
No,
but it was a boring race. But we always talk about Ferrari getting pit strategies wrong. Well, they won a race because they didn't have a pit strategy to even contemplate, because it was just they didn't have to do a pit. It was so boring. Tire management, like you said, everybody finished in the same.
They all changed tires.
It was so boring.
They were all given the tire change, at the end of lap one. So they'd done their tire change after the crash, and they all just drove around. But it's the same story in Formula 2 and Formula 3. I mean, it's the same story in the Porsches. I mean, it's the same story in all of them. Funny enough, I texted young Brundle, Alex Brundle, because when I was watching the Formula 3, which I watched on the Friday, they kept on talking about loads more people on the podium. And I just said, oh, come on, boys, tell it it's a sprint podium. The sprint wins aren't the same as the real wins. And actually the commentator, I've got his name now, sorry, apologies, said, we think each win is equal to another win. Almost like Alex had told him what I was saying. And they don't want that. They want, they want to have, 8 different winners in a season and 28 different people all on the podium. But
Tiff, if they did a reverse grid in Formula One around Monaco, you'd have Yuki winning or something like that, because once you're in front,
would have won. Yeah.
Or
Yuki
Alex
would have
Albon,
won the Monaco Grand Prix. Yeah. Well, Yuki was 10th on the grid. Who was 10th on the grid? Well, it wasn't Yuki actually. It was
whoever it was.
Anyway, whoever it was. But the Formula 2 was Rule Britannia. For us, it was a good weekend, because Taylor Barnard, it was a really talented driver in that Formula E race last week. He was the name I forgot, that it was doing McLaren stand-in. He qualified 10th fastest driver out of the 20, whatever it is. And he 22, I think it is. So he got a pole position. So he won the sprint race, which is great for Taylor Barnard. But I'm sorry, I say every time, for him to go around saying I'm a Monaco Formula 2 winner, just doesn't ring right in my head.
Well, does that ring right more so than what we're going to come on to now with Zach O'Sullivan? Because that was the most bizarre twist of fate ever. But he is a proper Monaco winner.
Well, again, but then I don't like them able to pit under. Well, actually, didn't pit under virtual safety. I think they have stopped that, to be fair. So so it was an amazing race. So who was on the poor pole man, Richard Verschoor? He was leading from pole. He had engine problems. And then who was second? Orv Martins, the Frenchman, a terrible start. So he was second on the grid. So he dropped way back. So third qualified, Isaac Hadjar, the French guy, inherited the lead after a bit of shenanigans and was cruising to win the Monaco Grand Prix. He's French. It was all going to happen. And then there was an accident. So the team left Zach O'Sullivan, who qualified 15th. I presume he was running about 15th or 13th or 12th. So they left him out for the 42-lap race. They knew the only way of getting any sort of result was a safety car. And with 2 laps to go, there was a crash going out the pit lane, wasn't there? And the team actually saw that there must be a virtual safety car, because they saw the size of the crash. So they said, in. So he got in before the virtual safety car was called. The whole pack slowed down. They changed the wheels on Zach's car, and he just came out of the pits in front of Isaac Hadjar, who was crying into his helmet.
Oh, this I was going to make a point of this, because just before, Verschoor was on the radio, because he had some bad luck, as you said, and he was leading the race. And he's on the radio and he was saying, "This is my career. This is my career. It's so awful. I'm so unlucky." So he was upset. But then Hadjar on the radio, if he was my son, I would have given him a clip round the ear.
Why? What was he saying then?
It was horrible. He said, "No, watch this. This is so wrong." And he was so angry, but really, really horrid with how he is. And you just think, look, no one likes losing, and I appreciate the emotions are super strong, but he was horrible And fair play to Team Campos, because when he came in afterwards and got second, he was so angry, so angry. Wheel on the floor type of job. And Team Campos, really classy. They're saying, well done, this is brilliant. What amazing drive. Forget the result. What amazing drive. Yeah. And they did a good job, because he should have won the race. Of course he should have won the race. It was just an incredible twist of fate that Zach O'Sullivan won. So
then we had two British winners, one who qualified 10th and one who qualified 15th.
Around Monaco, of all places.
I know. Well. Ollie Behrman was one of them. Didn't watch all the race or how he got there, but he's had a terrible time in Formula 2, Ollie. He had an awful pit stop down in Imola that ruined that race that he was leading, and then he had terrible qualifying. He hit the wall in qualifying. He qualified 12th. This is the guy that everyone's raving about as the next big thing in Formula 1. But he somehow got to 4th place. I'm not sure, because apparently there's quite a good moment where he came out of the pit side by side with Kimi's, the other superstar of the future, Kimi Antonelli, and was side by side virtually all the way down to the hairpin or something. But he got ahead of Kimi, so he put the kid in his place because Kimi was 7th. So Ollie finally had something to smile about, I think.
Do you know what? I think there was literally Lance Stroll made one overtake, and there was someone else in the Grand Prix. But there's actually quite a few overtakes in Formula 2. Quite a few. There were a good couple of handfuls, which is good. And we have
but they were probably though with a different tyre strategy, because that's when you get the overtake. When one's got really old knackered tyres and someone's come out of the pits with new tyres, you will get overtakes if you've got that extra traction.
And for those of you that go on social media, you might have seen this, but there's an amazing clip of going through the tunnel. This is in qualifying, actually, Hadjar. So we've got to give him some respect, even though he was a spoiled little brat over the radio. His reflexes, I don't know if you've seen the clip, Tiff, but there's someone broken down going through the tunnel incredibly slowly. He's unsighted, and he literally missed it by what looked like a couple of centimetres, which would have been an almighty crash flat out through the tunnel. So amazing reflexes from.
Well, there was something in Formula 1. There was some lots of talk about. I mean, Anthony Davidson said that they used to have a law that you had to go full throttle through the tunnel. You weren't allowed to back off from. You shouldn't be allowed to. Car. Oh, there were some scary ones,
but it always looks worse on TV, where you've got this dark and then it goes white. It's not that dark. It's not like that. No, it's not. But still.
So it's the Formula 3. They all just went round again. Again, the Bulgarian had their first Formula 3 winner, Nikola Solov, who qualified 12th, fastest Formula 3 driver, which isn't a bad thing in 36 cars, whatever. And he had pole position and won. The best Brit in the sprint race was Joseph Lowe, who had a really good weekend. I think he qualified about 9th, but he got 5th place in the sprint race and then held on to his 9th in the main race. And they've had a terrible... I think he hasn't been in the top 20, I don't think, so far this year. So he was, of course, the Autosport Young Driver Award winner last year. So good for Joseph. The main race was won by, guess what, the pole position man, Gabriele Mini, the Italian, who did the same last year. So he won it last year as well. So he obviously knows his way around Monaco, which is very impressive. And the best Brit was Luke Browning, who came 3rd, qualified 3rd, finished 3rd. And he stays 2nd in the championship, but he was 2nd behind the Italian guy whose name I've forgotten. He's now 2nd behind Mini, who went to the top of the points. So it's still good, a solid job, Luke Browning, up there, 2nd in the F2 championship.
And we're with a young star of the future tomorrow, aren't we, Freddie Slater?
We're playing golf with Freddie's and the British Racing Drivers Golf, which I've invited you to. I hope you're going to look right tomorrow, dress correctly. No mucking about.
I did see the email. We do expect you to dress appropriately. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let you down. I'm not going to wear a football shirt like you, am I? No talking on my backswing. Just look for Indycar. My ball. Just please look for my ball. No, finish Porsche, Monaco. We're Harry King, of course, doing football shoes. Another boring. Excuse me. Another boring race. Harry King qualified 2nd. And he's been beaten now for both the first 2 races in the Porsche Supercup by Larry Ten Voorde, who's won the championship twice before, I think. So he's under the cosh. I think he beat Ten Voorde to Monaco last year. So Harry, our Porsche driver of the future, 2nd again, 2nd at Imola, 2nd at Monaco. Where do you go from there? From typically something like
Porsche hopefully into the prototypes. Like Nick Tandy, of course. Nick Tandy had this amazing route from a super stock mini driver up in Ipswich, Norwich, to doing Formula 4. He was a huge talent. He did a Formula 3. I think he won 1 race. Then he switched to Supercar. Like so many of these kids do now. They see they can't get anywhere in single seaters. They haven't got the money. So Nick Tandy's had a super career. He's really talented, and hopefully, King will go that way and end up winning Le Mans in a Porsche.
Have you raced in the same race as Nick Tandy on the same track at the same time as Nick Tandy?
You bring this out every week, don't you?
So only 50% of this podcast is raced against Nick Tandy. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Don't beat yourself up about it. Let's go to Indianapolis.
Oh,
the Razzmatazz. My goodness, they overdo this, the Americans.
I got home in time for the football.
Race in the world. Yeah, because it was delayed for 4 hours because of the
4-hour delay. So got home to find it just about to start, which was a huge bonus. So it was a long race since I was a bit knackered. And as soon as I got home, there was a bit of alcohol was used to celebrate. But
I didn't realize not a single. They can't have any wet patches whatsoever. No. So they don't compromise the driving. They don't slow the driving down. No. They have to dry every part of that tarmac. That's incredible.
But they come round. I mean, they're so disciplined. They all understand the show and the game. The rolling start. The crowd are up, 300,000 people. And they come round in those very disciplined 3 side-by-side row and about 10 car lengths between each row. They leave the gap. Otherwise, he won't wave the green. He won't wave. He'll hold it. He'll have to go round again. You have to get into formation.
But if you go back before that, you've got the most famous words in motor racing ever.
Gentlemen,
start your
It's not gentlemen. It's not gentlemen anymore now. It's drivers. Because there was one female driver, of course. We had Catherine Legg.
Catherine, not Charlotte Legg.
Who again had another disappointing race. She was out of her first pit stop last year, and she had an engine failure this year early on before she even pitted. So real shame. She made such an effort to get the sponsors and get in the race.
I was looking at her yesterday online and just said, wow, this 42-year-old female. Yeah. No, I'm not being ageist. I'm certainly not being sexist, but not what you'd expect from England in the Indy 500. And you know what really, really winds me up this morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm looking at BBC Sports, go on the motorsport section. There is not a single solitary thing on Indy 500 who won the Indy 500 the whole way through.
Oh, there's nothing at all.
And we had Callum Ilott, Catherine, who else? British.
Only one other, Tom Blomqvist, who was the next name which would come on my list, unfortunately, who didn't make it round turn 1.
Yes, he wasn't very popular.
No, because he took out last season's winner Marcus Ericsson and Pietro Fittipaldi. Who actually, luckily, we didn't lose Callum Ilott, because Callum Ilott, trying to get by the inside, actually was the one that turfed Fittipaldi into the wall. But that spectacle as they go through, and then the green goes. And obviously, the front row, the pole man does tend to just creep ahead slightly on the run to the line. And then it just went on, it was just so much excitement. They reckon they'd had this 4 hours waiting. The commentators would say they'd all been drinking too much coffee because they're like Formula 4 drivers. They were taking risks and making moves. Normally it settles, for at least an hour. But no, they were at it, hammer and tongs. That rookie, Linus Lundqvist, he hit the wall, tried to go too hard. Catherine Legg dropped out. So Marcus Armstrong, the Kiwi, he dropped out. We had 2 Honda engine failures. So lots of incidents going on. Because if a car goes around smoking, they throw a yellow flag. So there were plenty of restarts and overtakes.
There's more than 2 engines for Honda, I think, Tiff, as well. I think there was more than that even. But yeah, it wasn't Honda's day.
No, not at all. But we had this amazing when Ryan Hunter-Ray had got a run on, because if you catch a back mark in the wrong place and a bit slowed up, and he went to go inside of Dixon, one of the most experienced drivers, Scott Dixon. Dixon did move over a bit, I reckon, and so did the commentators, but he got away with it because he's scuddy. But they touched, front wheel to rear wheel at 230 miles an hour, and it pushed Hunter out to the grass. He had a 360-degree spin at 200 miles an hour. Didn't hit anything, but he'd done the damage going over the grass and bumping around a bit. And
we need to... I was just going to say, we should go back a little bit to the first restart, because your mate, Carl Larson, who sadly didn't do the double because it was delayed, so he didn't get to
we'll
NASCAR.
Come to the end of the day, we'll get to that.
I felt so sorry for him because he was 6th, I think, on the grid.
Then he changed up instead of down or something, and the engine bogged.
And 10 or 11 cars just went past him, and it's not.
But he got back. He got back to 6th place. He got back into the top 6, and then the first racing speed green flag pit stops, when there hadn't been, most of the pit stops early on was all you went into the safety car, so you crawl in, So the first going flat out, and he just locked up the fronts and just slid through the timing beginning and was done for going too fast into the pits, which was a drive through the next lap. So he went a lap down, and that really was the end. I think he finished 17th or something.
Yeah, but it's a bit admirable, really, because it was the racecraft that he couldn't quite get. Clearly he's an incredible driver. And for those of you that have never seen IndyCar, the thing that blows my mind the most is the pit stops, because they have a pit stop and they might get 12 cars in at once, and they're just all leaving together, sort of two abreast, and
only 4 men, only 1 man on each wheel. You can see the wheel change going on, the fuel's going in. Yeah, even the pit stops are exciting. I know you get excited about 1.19 seconds, 1.96 seconds Red Bull. Oh no, Ferrari only 1.86. You can't see it. You can't see the pit stop. It's just brrr, and they're gone again. You see the guys putting the wheels on, putting the fuel in. That's what a pit stop should look like.
John Cludge. Sorry, Tiff. John Cludge on the messages just said that it wasn't Catherine Legg or Charlotte? Catherine Legg. Yeah, it wasn't her fault. It was the engine. Yeah, as we said. So we couldn't agree more. And Tube Tuckered, great podcast. Why does it take so long to get it on Spotify every week? Well, Phil, why does it take so long? No, it's not me. It's Phil. So Phil sorts it out. We will try harder. And sorry, we're going.
It's because we're an unsponsored podcast. If we were a sponsored, anyone out there, bling bling bling, it would be much quicker. Then we had this bizarre moment when Colton Herter had been having a tremendous charge up towards the front of the field, lost it on his own. I think it was turn 1. And he had this spin and knocked the nose badly into the wall, but in fact hadn't hit the wall with any wheel. And it came to a halt. And the commentator was saying, "I don't think he hit anything. I don't think." But he got out. He thought his race was over. He was probably so pissed off that he'd spun it, and he just assumed the race must be over. So he got out of the car. They take it back to the paddock, and again with IndyCar. Imagine doing this in Formula One. They popped into the garage, checked them, changed the wheels and tires, put a new nose on it, and stuck him back in the car to get back out there. But
brilliant.
And the crazy thing, sorry for the dog. I was singing too much yesterday. Oh, and the Saints go, we're going up. So although he would have got a lap down for the spin, I mean, maybe not. He could have got back to the pits and repaired his nose, but that put him out. Callum Ilott, he had a pretty awful time because he qualified about 12th, I think, but he had a battery problem, so he couldn't take the proper start. So he started at the back of the pack, which is why he got involved in the Blomqvist crash when he hit Fittipaldi. So
they said it's quite popular. They said it's quite a common thing. They said obviously they're not out in the rain, but when there's a rain delay, quite often they do have electrical problems.
They shouldn't know, but he got back to 11th, so he finished 11th. I mean, he's only a stand-in driver for McLaren. Lots of talk maybe they'll sign him up for next year. Of course, he's shared these taking the driver, whoever was injured, this 4th car with Théo Pourchaire. But they've signed Pourchaire full time because I think Callum's too busy with his Porsche driver. Of course, he won the race at where was the race? Imola. But maybe next year Callum will get that full time McLaren seat in the 4th car. So then all those went by, and then it just came back to this last lap, and then there's so much racing going on. But last year's winner, Newgarden, Josie was out there in the lead, but Pato O'Ward, who's desperate to win this race, was in his wheel tracks, and on the penultimate lap, he backed off down the back straight, and you could see he had the momentum from the toe and decided not to overtake. So he followed Newgarden round, overtook him across the start-finish line with 1 lap to go, with 300,000 people on their feet, cheering, atmosphere. And I actually thought afterwards, because when he came out of turn 2, with quite a good lead going onto the back straight, he did a big weave, which they all do to try and break the toe. And I actually thought if you weave, you must scrub a little bit of speed off. Maybe if he just got a straight line, it might have been better. Because, halfway down the straight, he took the inside line to go into turn 3 ahead. And Newgarden just stayed on the throttle and went around the outside of turn 3 to take the lead and win the Indianapolis 500 for the 2nd time in a row. And leap out of his car in what he did last year, run into the crowd. It was just magic. It's entertainment. They don't muck about over there.
They do entertainment well, but all the the Star Spangled Banner and all the
Is that too much
all
for
the
you? Is that too much for you?
Yeah, but fair play to them. 300,000 people.
What would you rather have? All the bloody old-fashioned raspberries have an army with rifles and punching hearts, or would you rather have Dizzy Dob Dizzy on the grid at Miami with Martin Brundle?
That's true. No, I like. We didn't mention Martin Brundle's grid walk, but I do like it. But with Mbappe, it was quite funny. The one guy saying, one of his bouncers or minders saying, no, he's not interested, and he said, I'm in charge around here. Brundle said that to his minder, and he just But if you're on the grid, great. Wherever you are, if you're a celebrity, you're there. You've got to be spoken to, and you've got to be prepared to speak.
Well, it's down to the team. The team should enforce that because obviously they're all invited by teams. So the deal's normally done by the team, or maybe it's done by Liberty or someone. But whoever invites
them, FIA as well,
yeah, whoever invites them must be told. So yeah, fantastic last night watching Indy 500. And I caught up this morning with the Moto GP, which was pretty epic as always, down in Barcelona. I actually watched the sprint race on Saturday, which was quite a sprint race because Raul Fernandez, who drives this satellite Aprilia. And it's this Trackhouse team, who are a NASCAR team. And Americans coming over and buying football clubs in England, aren't they now? They've now come over and invested in a Moto GP team. So Raul Fernandez led and then dropped it into the gravel. So then Brad Binder, his factory KTM, led and dropped it into the gravel. 2 leaders, dropped it. And then Francesco Bagnaia, the world champion, has had a bad year this year, and he's a bit behind on the points this season. He had a 0.7 second lead going to the last lap, and he dropped it into the gravel. I was thinking they're on such a knife edge, these guys. They just got, because they're always braking in. They're releasing that front brake as they turn in, like a Formula One car or modern single seater. We've got downforce. The old thing when you're Caterham racing, love it, always mention Caterham racing, you tend to brake in a straight line and turn. That was always the good old, when you haven't got much grip on your wheels, you do that braking in a straight line, the old-fashioned way, and then you turn in and go through the corner. But of course, everything now with downforce and slick tyres, you brake into the apex. Of course, with 4 wheels, if you lock up, you just snag a front tyre, doesn't really matter. You get a bit of a lock-up. That's the most exciting thing in Formula One, isn't it, normally? The cameras, the producers, replay, locked up wheel. Whoa! But if that happens in a Moto GP bike, you're on your ass into the gravel. So through it all, they had a wonderful Spanish 1-2-3 for the home crowd. Because Alex Espargaro, the factory Aprilia rider, won it. He's retiring this year. He's a Catalonian, so he's down the road to the Barcelona hometown. And this is last year, so they're all over the world. Marc Marquez, who everybody loves, whatever nation you are from, he came from 14th. He did this in Imola, wherever they were last. I forget where they were last. Came through to take 2nd place, just going past at the end. I think it was on the last lap, our 20-year-old birthday boy, Pedro Acosta. So lovely smiles on the podium. And then the Grand Prix wasn't quite as close. We had this great battle at the front. But Pedro Acosta, again, was chasing Bagnaia. The 20-year-old was going to win his first Grand Prix on his birthday or the day after his birthday. But then Jorge Martin, the championship leader, caught those 2 up. He got by Acosta. Then Acosta dropped him, went in the gravel for the 2nd race running. It was Le Mans last time, MotoGP. It was Le Mans. So Acosta's had 2 Grand Prix crashed out of now. But I think it's because he's right. He's on a satellite, not a KTM, so he's not even on a factory bike. So he's almost riding above his weight. And his driving style is different, riding style. He turns in early. And then if you watch him, when he's leaning out, his head, it's almost level with the front. It's almost under the handlebars. You see it, he's just so much further over off the bike. He's got an incredibly exciting style to watch, which is really working.
Most of them are tiny guys, aren't they?
Yeah, I think he's quite an averagely tally. But it left this amazing fight out. For the rest of the race, it was just Bagnaia against Jorge Martin, factory Ducati against a satellite Ducati. Although Martin's got a factory spec bike, I think, this year. Martin got into the lead, but Bagnaia followed him, and Bagnaia got by at the end to win the race. So that was a better day for Bagnaia. Meanwhile, behind him, about 10 seconds back or 7 seconds back, was a wonderful battle for 3rd place, which was won by Marco Marquez, who again come from 14th on the grid because the same qualifying in MotoGP. He actually took the podium place off of Alex Espargaro, who's it's his last year and he's Catalonian. And he actually apologised in the post race. You imagine a Formula One driver doing that, you know? Yeah, I'm on the podium in Spain. I'm Marc Marquez, and everybody loves me. But I feel a bit sorry for Alex taking the podium off him for his last ever race in front of his home crowd. So they respect each other because of how dangerous it is.
Do you know what? I don't know what it is with Max, and maybe Yuri will jump in here. Maybe he only listens to the Max bits, but I've got to say, I really warmed to him over the last couple of Grand Prix because he was super humble. Yeah. I didn't like him and Charles on the way around making jokes with their team, how easy it was, how quiet it was, how boring it was.
Yeah.
Because you want to think that they're on the edge, even if they're not pushing. But Max, I got to say, he's very humble these days. Let me just break there a couple of very quick questions. David said, in your prime, in your zenith, would you have driven Indy if asked? Because lots of people don't want to because it's quite dangerous, much more dangerous back in your day as well.
I'd have done anything on four wheels. And of course, I've done Indy. I would have been
especially if you got paid.
I'd have thought about it, but no. I mean, I still now would just love, and they do 230 miles an hour. Now, oh, sorry, words, good cough. I'd love to go around 150 miles an hour. You know, they do 230. I'd just love to get to a single-seater Indycar and go round that track once at 120 miles an hour even.
You wouldn't do 120. You wouldn't do 120 because you think, oh, okay, maybe I can get up to 160. Then you think, oh, maybe I'll do 180. Very good. And also...
Moto 2. Oh,
wait. Got questions. Tube Tucker says, that's a very good username. Very good. Thanks for the reply. And then John says the best Martin Brundle comment was when he told Horner, remember when he said to Horner that he wasn't fast enough to get into Formula One. He said, at least I was in Formula One or something, so you were never fast enough. And Nick Fox says Drive Tribe Live, 23rd of June. Yes, we will be there. Both Tiff and I will be there. Drive Tribe Live. So all these comments, we've got 4 people listening. It's very good stuff. Moto 2.
Yeah, Jake Dixon back on form. We qualified about 9th, but he finished 2nd. I'm 3rd, Britain's only Moto 2 rider. Behind Japan's Aya Ogura won the race from pole, with Spain's Sergio Garcia 2nd. So good. Then the Moto 2 is never quite as exciting as either Moto GP or Moto 3, where we had the amazing pack to the finish. And again, this David Alonso, this Colombian, came out on top. And he's just this lovely, smiling kid. And he explained afterwards, he said, I copy someone else's race. I look at the race of someone that run it 2 years ago, who'd sort of saved his tyres a bit, and he sort of played at the front. But he always made sure he had enough tyres left. And then the last lap, he said, last lap, I use everything. And he did. He never blocked. So he's got a pack of 6 or 4 behind him. But he still kept the race because he knew he could brake later. If he stayed on the correct line, nobody could undertake him because he could brake later. So he literally took the perfect normal racing line and held on to win. So he's got a clever head in there. He will be a future GP rider. So David Alonso. Scott Holden, our British boys, still struggling. Scott was 16th and Josh Watley was 20th.
Over to the UK, but Rallycross Craig said he's on as well, so he's listening as well. So
Rallycross Craig.
John says Indy and the Isle of Man TT are the 2 races in the world that scare me to watch. See, I disagree because Indy, you're so safe nowadays, even on these ridiculously fast crashes. You're so safe these days comparatively to the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man TT. Oh, that is horrific. That is bad stuff.
The thing about the Isle of Man TT, it's in my list of what to do because it starts on Wednesday for 2 weeks. It's funny because it's not a race. This is always the thing that trouble. It's like rallying. We always rave about the rally drivers because they go through these forests with trees. The stunning skill, bravery. I don't use that word because I don't think people are brave. You just do it because you know you can do it. And the pictures are spectacular of one rally car going through the corners, but you're still waiting for the stopwatch. And it's a bit like that with the Isle of Man. Of course, they start, is it 2 minutes apart or 1 minute apart? I'm not sure. So although if the second runner catches the first runner, you know he's got a minute in his pocket. He's a minute ahead of him. And again, the shots are incredible. The skills are incredible. The bravery, I think that is brave, the Isle of Man. So it's funny to compare a race, because the thing is, you're more likely in a race, Indy, you've got someone else putting you in. You're not always, in charge of what's going to happen. There's always this extra element that another driver is going to put you in the wall and ruin your day. And of course, it is safe. But if they get up into those fences, if they fly, which they now don't do as much as they did because they got these flaps and body stuff. Oh, sorry, cough. It is still pretty dangerous, I'd say, Indy.
Of course, it's yeah, of course it is. But comparatively,
TT's awesome. When you see them going through those, when they're brushing their shoulder, and you say, "Oh no, it's terrifying." That is terrifying.
But the curbs, they got like proper curbs.
I know
on the road, and you
just that first corner. The first corner, the downhill into the right hand and the bottom. I should know these now. Just that one corner, because they kink left just after the start finish line and plunge down that hill full. They don't lift at the bottom. It's just absolutely.
And what's the average speed around there? 180 miles an hour for the fastest ever, or something
no,
ridiculous?
140. No, they're not. They don't average 180.
It's not 180.
I've lost touch.
No, I don't
140
anyway,
is I would have thought.
Can someone please Google that and put it on the
because
comments?
They top 180. 180 is about top speed.
No, they do. They do 200, don't they?
Well, I don't know.
No, probably not. I'm talking absolute rubbish.
Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. That's for next week. We finished off last weekend. A few more from last week. There's a BTCC. I didn't watch much. I didn't have time to catch up last night. Jake Hill, pole, bit like Monaco, won the first 2 races. Pole, win. Good story. Bobby Thompson, that's back in the BTCC, got enough money to get a drive in a BMW, which he was always in the front wheel drive last year. Very popular driver. He came second in one of the races. Got Ash Sutton a third in that first race and a fifth in the reverse grid race to keep the lead of the championship. And it's very much the Sutton, Turkington, Ingram, Hill pack now, and Hill's caught up from 4th place. So now the 4 of them are covered by 11 points, and there's 26 points back to 5th place Josh Cook. So as I said at the beginning of the year, it looks like that the pack of 4.
But it always is with those 4.
Yeah, that's been the same for the last couple of years. But the big story was the reverse grid race. It's amazing, which I have watched the whole that race on catch up. Because it started a half wet, half dry. I think the first race was actually wet, and then the second race was dry of the day. But it was all it was very wet down at the end of the straight, but there were dry bits. And most people came out in slicks, but some had to have the soft slick, which is compulsory to use once, and some had the hard slicks that already used the soft slick. And several went out in wets, including Jake. So he'd drawn number 9 out of the pack, so he had to start 9th. I forget who was on pole. But he put the wets on. He stormed through from 9th. He got out to about 8-second lead while all the boys on slicks spun off, slithered around, hit each other. But gradually, the wets went off. And so there was this pack catching up. And all of a sudden, coming to the top of the pack was Rob Huff, who's back in the BTCC. And Rob's one of these drivers I so admire. He's so good and so quick. And like Jason Plato, he's a driver that to me should have been a Le Mans prototype by now. I think I was worried with these. I mean, Rob went off around the world to do the World Championship, but still the front wheel drive shopping trolleys, as I call them. He should have been in GT racing. Jason should have gone off and done more. But they enjoy their touring cars. They like it in that little happy family. And then Rob just kept on coming. They kept on coming. 14th and got through to win the race. In fact, he led a Toyota 1-2-3. So the Toyota Corolla that hasn't had much joy yet had a tremendous finish. So well done, Huffy. Good lad. So and a little special mention, one of our Thruxton instructors, who I always support, Lydia Walmsley, who races the Mini every year, run by a dad, little family thing. It's called Lydia Walmsley Racing. And it's on a 22-car field. And they have these teams out there that often happens in these one-make series that to accelerate. They run 8 cars. The Napa Racing, which Ash Sutton sponsors, they run 3 cars. And of course, they got all the extra settings and the extra info and learned, And she had a 3rd place, her first podium in the first race of the Minis at Snetterton. So well done, Lydia. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, great story. She's been at it, and really working so hard. So that was
just very quickly before we go to Donington. Few points. Yes, Tiff has been cheering a lot because of the Saints, hence why he's wearing that shirt as well. Isle of Man was 136 miles an hour, 2000 last year by Peter Hickman, which is just nuts. 136 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Mark Higgins special 133 miles an hour, which is amazing for a car. Really, 133 miles an hour around around the TT in a car. That's
in a
just nuts.
Subaru. It's nuts.
That's
And
crazy.
he nearly crashed. It was a famous video when he went into the bottom dip and got a tank slapper on coming out of that dip. And he was doing about 140 through that flat out kink at the bottom. The trouble with the car is, I did a PR lap with Protions. I followed a train of Subarus around one year. And there's some amazing essays. I think about the first third of the track. There's this section, which is just a little kink left, kink right. You can only see about 70 yards ahead of you before it kinks another one that kinks. And of course, the bike can go through the gap narrower, whereas a car that's wider has got to make more of an S of it. So it's actually a lot harder in some of those tracks, on a car to go through. It's like when we used to race on fifth gear and top gear, Lovecars, all these people have a slalom race. And of course, the bike beats the car by many seconds because it just nips through. Anyway.
But interestingly, with these long courses like the TT, so Sebastian Ogier was telling me that he just memorizes it. And Nürburgring, I guess you would. But Pikes Peak, for example, that's a hard one to memorize because you don't get that much time on it. So he would break it down into segments, like a sector 1, 2, 3, effectively, and just memorize it, which is like you memorize.
With the last 10 years or so, they all use the onboard cameras. Even the special stage rallying, which is supposed to be secret, they go in the World Championship.
The boys don't like that.
They don't. They just sit and watch on the telly. So you don't have to remember it. You can learn it, not by being on the track.
But the good guys don't like that because because everything is live now. They're showing this amazing data effectively to all the other teams live. But we digress. Let's go to Donington.
Donington, lots of rain, that terrible weather. I think they're all on the grid with slicks. And it rains. They aborted the start and put them on wets. It was about 3.5 hours, a long distance race, great race, won by a Lamborghini, prepared by a team called Barwell Motorsport.
Barwell.
Where the commercial director is a bloke called Chris Needell. So congratulations to Barwell for another Lamborghini win. Alex Martin and Sandy Mitchell, the drivers, but just won by 0.6 of a second. I think it was loads of pace cars, lots of mayhem, rain and everything else. They beat the McLaren into second place and Mercedes in third. So lots of wet entertainment for the GT boys. And then only other thing going on in Britain was rallying. Talking of rallying, the Pro Bit British Rally Championship and its third round, the third different winner, the Jim Clark Rally around the famous Duns area where Jim Clark grew up. And Ireland's Keith Cronin won it in a Ford Fiesta. So third different winner. The British Rally Championship is alive and kicking.
Which is more like, say, for NASCAR. No, NASCAR is alive and kicking very much so. But it's literally every weekend we go and do NASCAR. And then you say, oh, yeah, it was really exciting, but it wasn't very exciting. How was this week?
I haven't watched it.
Did you scrub through?
It was too much to catch up. I just read the result. It wasn't. I saw bits of it when my son was watching this morning. There was a bit, but it ended up a bit disappointing because this is the Coca-Cola 600, and this is the famous double race, which about 5 NASCAR drivers have done before. We do Indy, then the Indy 500, then you get in a plane and fly down to Charlotte, and you complete both races. And this is what Larson wanted to do, but of course with a 4-hour delay, he couldn't make the start. You can still have a stand-in driver. So he had who was it? Justin Allgaier went into the number 5, and they did about half the race. And Larson had just turned up from his jet, so he was ready to get in, but the rain came and it stopped the race. And they watched it rain for a while, and eventually, because it had done half distance, they declared it a race. So Larson didn't even get in his car, although his car finished 13th in the official results. And Christopher Bell, always one of the front runners in his Toyota, was the lucky man that was leading when it started raining and the flags came out. So Kyle didn't even get in his second race. Had a disappointing Indy race and then didn't get in the second race. But so he's got another race next weekend.
Given Harry is your son is young, certainly a lot younger than us. What's his favourite motorsport to watch? Because he loves motorsport, doesn't he? We love sport, but
it's big NASCAR. We're big NASCAR Indycar. Harry loves NASCAR,
So would it be NASCAR, IndyCar, F1, or would it be a different order?
Yeah, probably something like IndyCar, NASCAR, F1. Yeah. Well, he's just a fan, so he watches all motorsport. I mean, every type of motorsport does have its day. There will be an exciting Formula E race one day. I don't know when it will be. Maybe never.
Well, there wasn't there?
They were racing about last weekend. But as I said last week, I'm not going to look at it anymore because it was yet another all round of the pack of cars for 25 laps, and they all raced for three laps. It's ridiculous.
A fellow Saints fan just sends his regards, Phil McCormack, and he was there yesterday as well. Oh no, his stepson went to Wembley. He didn't go. I can only see part of the screen, so sorry for that, Phil. But he said hello and up the Saints. Up the Saints indeed. For anyone that's listening to this motorsport podcast, it's been dominated a lot by Southampton, the Saints, because they qualified. They didn't qualify. They got promoted to go into the Premiership football. So motorsport people kind of turned up a lot for football.
What an atmosphere, that Wembley Stadium. When you walk in, we had some seats in the middle, so we walked in at the lower level, and just when you look around,
how much was a pint?
I didn't get that far. We went to Wagamama's. Wagamama can sponsor me because I tell everyone how good Wagamama's. Go to Wagamama's.
What's up next
coming
week,
up this weekend? The Indycars, they're keeping going. They don't muck around. They're off to Detroit for the street circuit. And so the Indian XT are there as well with Louis Foster, our British driver, who won the last round. Hopefully keep winning again. And of course, Jamie Chadwick, who's getting ever better in that series. So we can follow them this weekend. Also at Detroit, same amazing if you're there spectating. The IMSA sports cars, the hypercars that we see at Le Mans, they're also at Detroit. World Rally Championship in Italy for the rally boys. Moto GP ran the gorgeous, wonderful Mugello. That's probably the highlight of Moto GP, that circuit. I mean, they're coming down that. They are doing 210 miles an hour down that straight at Mugello, and all the beautiful sweeping corners. The NASCAR go to Madison, which used to be called the Gateway, 1.25 mile. And then, of course, there's the Isle of Man, which I was going to mention, but we've already mentioned, which is just the place to go. If you want to go and scare yourself, just go and get a vantage.
I would love to go there. But it hurts your neck, apparently, because you're just... It's about 1,000 times worse than a tennis. You're moving your neck so quickly to see these bikes go.
Amazing skills. And but as I say, they're not racing. They're time trialing in a funny sort of way, but that doesn't really matter. I don't know, it's quite hard. I don't know how good the information. I presume they've all got radios and commentary goes round, so you'll know who's catching who. Because you don't really know, just see bike going by. You're not actually unless you're knowledgeable about the starting order, so you can tell they've caught up the gap.
How do you go into that? How do you go into that as a family member? How do you go into Isle of Man week or the 2 weeks of Isle of Man with a family? Because literally one mistake. Oof. On that note, on that really
on that cheerful note.
Thanks for joining. We'll see you next